this. One of the steps to becoming a conspiracy theorist is questioning everything you believe. So, Greg, I just hear that you're getting closer and closer to our side. That
One of us.
my heart is happy. My heart is happy right now. I'm proud of you, Greg. So proud.
There's not many areas that people can push buttons for me, and it is one. There are. If it's over, I think I don't know if I said it was a me. If it's over a 5, it's about something else. If your emotional response is over a 5, it's about something else.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Odd Testament podcast. My name is Ryan.
My name's Eric.
I'm Greg.
I feel like people are going to think that Greg is on a delay based off of the timing he has every single time, but he knows exactly what he's doing. I just want listeners to know this is his way. This is his power move. Now he's acting.
He's not on dial-up internet.
Yeah. Okay. I just want people to know.
I stick a phone onto a modem and it screams for a while, and then
you have to kick the kids off of their telephones, and then
gotta work.
We are glad you guys are here. We're glad you guys are here with us today, whether you're here for a laugh, a fresh perspective on scripture, or you're exploring faith. Whatever brought you here, we're glad you're here, boys. Good to be with you. What's new with you?
What's cracking?
What's crack-a-lacking? That's talking about like old phrases from a couple weeks ago. Yeah, the crack-a-lackin's a good one, right? Is that 90s or 80s? Like, that feels like it could be in Back to the Future, and you could have heard Kurt Cobain say it.
Kurt Cobain, I can't. But I didn't know him. So
yeah, well, I'm good here. Right, it's officially summer in our house because kids are out of school, and we got summer camps and travels and all this stuff. So. It's let me tell you, my son might just randomly run in here. He may or may not have a shirt on, and there's nothing I can do about that. This is the age where I got to pick my battles, and shirts or no shirts, it's not a battle I'm willing to fight. So
that's good.
Nice.
That's my life.
But you probably would have done that as a kid if I would have allowed it. You push against shoes.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Are you a secret nudist? Is that your deepest desire?
When Natalie and I met, I didn't unless I was in the church building that I was interning for, I didn't wear shoes. And so and I lived in Southwest Florida, so everything was like sand and water, and it just wasn't I didn't really need them. Well, I mean, I need them, but there's just nothing I did that really needed it. And it was always way more comfortable to not wear shoes. And so I was full on hippie through and through. I wore capri pants. I had a messenger bag. I didn't have dreads, but I wasn't far away from that. So just want you guys to know more about me.
One bad decision away from that.
Your brother did messenger bag for a long time too, didn't he?
He did that in high school, though, I think.
Yeah.
Or I guess I don't know.
I remember Gage with his messenger bag.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Because he did the long hair, and then my oldest son just entered the pajama pants phase of preteen teenage years. Ryan, do you know what I'm talking about? Where there's a certain point where every teenager just wears pajama pants everywhere all the time, and and then the moment you have to tell them, can you go put on some shorts or pants? We're going to church or we're going out to eat or some people are coming over, like whatever it is. It's like, oh, they're just not comfy. I just don't like them. I'm gonna be getting back into these later today. Like I'm just gonna like oh my gosh, dude. So
Well,
we've already.
you're starting to have conversations with your kid then.
I wish they
That's
were
good.
conversations. They are they're exasperated, like breathy complaints that
Yeah.
if they were conversations, I would maybe cry. But I'm preparing the next 6 to 7 years being like this, where I'm just like begging him, like, dude, give me more than one word than
Yeah.
just okay. His voice is getting deep too. I'm here to. This is my therapy, by the way. I'm just complaining.
It's all of it.
Thank you,
That's
guys.
that's what we're doing today. I
This is-
started
yeah.
off.
This is dad therapy.
So I've regularly described this time to other people as like, this is my release. When I have to have my pastor hat on or dad hat on all the time, this is my release. This is where I let it all out. So
there you go. There you
guys,
go.
thank you.
You're not wearing pants, are you?
Oh gosh, let's not go there, boys. Let's not go there. So you said, and you said,
and we had to cancel the podcast.
you said something that kind of triggered me a little bit, Eric. You said it's summertime in my house, and yeah, it's after Memorial Day, and that's usually like kind of it's 55 degrees here and rainy. I feel like I say that every week. 55 and rainy, but that's what it is here. 55 degrees and rainy. That stinks. So.
The Lord has abandoned the Northeast.
Yeah.
He's just left it to its own, like its own devices
written across the.
Yes.
Yeah. He's
why have you forsaken me?
He thinks of Delaware like your past sins. He has forgotten them.
Yes, that's good. Well, boys,
creating
do you know what it's? Do you know what? Do you guys know what it's time for?
Getting to know you, getting to know you, getting to know you, getting to know you. Getting to know you.
Yeah, getting to know you. And
I turned my headphones up for another meeting I had, and I forgot to turn them back down.
Yes. And today we're getting some help once again from Mr. Klosterman. The hypotheticals. I got one of those for you guys.
Okay.
Greg, this one's really gonna piss you off. So
if a monkey had no arms,
how quickly could he become
this one?
And you married it.
This one has to do with you and you
like?
alone. This one has to do with you and you alone. I promise.
Just me. Okay.
All
How
right.
do you feel about the state of the world?
Let me set up the scenario and then I'll ask you the question. Okay. You are presented with a strange challenge. Someone dares you to count backward from 300 to 0. If you succeed at this simple request, you will be given $25,000 in cash. However, if you misspeak, get any digit incorrect, or make any mistake whatsoever, you will be immediately doused with gasoline and burned alive. Do you attempt the challenge?
No.
No?
No. It's not a risk aversion even. It's I would definitely mess up somewhere along the line. That's a lot of numbers.
You really are money bags.
No, I just would mess up. I even as you were asking the question before I knew it, I was like, oh, I wouldn't be able to successfully. I'd have to really try to count backwards, and it's not a. It's just the amount of attention it would take to try and do it. Yeah, I would lose focus and actually, at some point I would forget even a little bit, because if it's any mistake, then somewhere in there I'm going to stumble trying to remember what my last number was.
For the sake,
that's just self-awareness.
It's just self-awareness. You're right. That was gonna make him mad. Okay. For the sake of the conversation, I'm going to ask questions, and you, as the deliverer of the question, have to give me the answers to this, because can I utilize like pen and paper? Like, can I write down numbers as I'm going through them so I can log where I've messed up, or do I have to do it all through memory?
It does not say you cannot use pen and paper, so I would say yes.
So then I could do it.
Yeah. Well, you already said no, so
That's fine. I'm the being burned alive is I'm
Hey,
good.
man.
But
Hey,
even if he doesn't,
Let me add to it, and I'll shut up, and I'll try to shut up. If you phrase it as you'll win or you'll get or something like that, then I'm cool. If you said something like, "Hey, I'll pay you this to count to 300," there's a good chance I don't care what you offered, I wouldn't do it.
just because of that it's too good to be true, kind of.
No,
Like,
there's something in me that pushes back against you trying to control me.
yeah.
That you could buy me. There's some point, and it
Okay.
would depend on your demeanor and stuff like that. But if anything about it was like you trying to prove or something,
Yeah.
nope, we're done. $1 million, and everybody else would be like, dude, you could have just had $1 million. Like, I don't know. And it's never happened. So to say that I would do is a silly thing, but I do have that inclination. If somebody's like, hey, I'll give you $20 to eat this. No, I don't need $20.
So when forced, if you were forced, would you sabotage yourself immediately and be like, "You can't control me," like Maximus Decimus? Are you not entertained?
Right. It's more like it might be something like that. It's more likely I would change. I would do some psychological gymnastics in my head to justify however reason I got there. I would change somehow the narrative to get past my own hang up, or not even hang ups, my own blocks. So, but yeah. Anyway,
have you seen? I know we're
therapist.
question.
Yes.
Have you seen Squid Games on Netflix?
No, I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay, well,
I keep my heart
not pure. This. Yeah, well, yeah, you're probably a better person for it. But it's this horrific game show where there's only one winner, and he gets a massive prize at the end of it. And what he has to do in order to get this prize ends up being really horrible. And so then season 2, like the way seemingly he's like dealing with it / potentially absolving himself from the stuff he had to do to survive, is trying to figure out who it was that made him do what he did. And so like that was what was in my head, where you're going to go like John Wick style, which is I'm going to use the million to take down the people who gave me the million. Yeah, if I could utilize outside of my memory, because I would agree with my ADHD brain and how, like, I think I'm actually pretty calm under pressure, but I think at some point as I'm getting lower and lower in the numbers, my anxiety would peak, and I would misspeak more than I would misremember. And so if I was able to write down and catalog in some way, then I would feel pretty confident about doing that. I think I could. And the burn alive is a really scary one, because it just affects so many other people. Like, so I don't know. That's
but still could $25,000, huh?
See, that's the thing. $25,000 is don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money. I would never turn it away, but it
doesn't change much.
It's not life-changing money. Like,
man,
like
you
$1
guys,
million.
both you guys are money bags.
Well,
what would 25,000 do for you right now?
It would get me out of all my debt, and that would be fantastic.
It would.
That'd be
that's it.
Yeah, that's minimal life changing. Like That's it. Maybe make you like allow us to make bigger risks if we didn't have more like debt. But Ryan, you've already risked it all and became a church planter. Like,
Truth.
so you were willing to make
Truth.
risks even without the money. So,
but you're solving it with the podcast.
That's right. That's right.
And there you go.
And we keep sabotaging it, and that's our fault.
Ironically, where I'm at right now with the whole church thing, I feel like I'm being burned alive, but not like physically, you know. So I'm just kidding.
Just the stairs of judgment.
So we need to pause the
answer. What's that?
We need to pause the recording and talk.
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, what is your answer? Because you always seem. I don't know if you're picking these because you always seem ready to take on any challenge, and so I'm actually concerned for you, and that I think you should negotiate a higher dollar amount. Like,
so here's
dude. They said I could sell my kidney and get $15,000.
There you go.
Do you know how much that solves?
Here's part of it. I am confident in myself.
Sure.
I'm confident in my abilities. So I'm like counting from 300 to 0. I'm not a moron. I could do that, you know, like, so maybe that's my ignorance because that's a long time. Right. Like,
yeah.
And but here's part of my thought process. So you asked about, you know, pen and paper and all that. It doesn't also say anything about time. So there's no cadence I have to keep or anything like that. So I literally could, I mean, $25,000 to spend half an hour counting from 300 to 0. Like that's a good $25,000 made, right? In my head. So that's why I say,
I think the problem with the question is what we kind of hit on, which is the reward and punishment aspect of it. Like the reward is 25,000, punishment is death by fire.
Yeah, kind of out of balance a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a little out of balance. I think that's because that's a life-changing event for multiple people. Where like $1 million, like I think that's a life-changing amount of money. You know, there's a lot that you can do with it. It's crazy that is still like not a crazy amount of money, but it's a ton. Like it would do a lot.
So what's the amount of money it would take to get you to attempt it? If the result of misspeaking or messing up in any way is gasoline and being burned alive, what's the amount of money it would take for you to accept the challenge?
If I could write it down.
Yeah.
What's the bare minimum? You said 250?
Yeah. Gasoline, man. We're talking.
Yeah. Oh,
if you survive, it's worse than dying.
It's gonna smell so bad.
Yeah. How do you get that gas out? How do
that's my problem with it. Oh,
those clothes are gone. You got to buy a whole new whatever you're wearing.
And what kind of wood is underneath me? Is it cedar? Ugh. Like I like a nice apple wood at least.
And you're getting taxed too. So
assumed, yeah. It's offshore bank accounts if we can make that work out. Minimum amount. I mean, hopefully my wife doesn't listen to this episode, but I would say $500,000. I think that's a risking the life on, you know, and that would.
You think Natalie would want you to go less, like 10?
I think if she was just like, if you just do the laundry, it's probably worth it. So, it's also the, like, I got I got 3 kids. 2 of them were really young. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure if I was, close to the grave, I'd be way more risk taking, maybe not. Maybe at that point,
you get less, you get more
really?
risk averse. Yeah.
Really? That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So part of it too is like,
you know too much information. That's why you do all your dumb stuff when you're young.
So part of my answer too is like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna go out in some crazy way. How did Ryan die? He was burned alive because he misspoke counting backwards from 300. Yo,
that's a joke.
That's a sentence just long enough to put on a tombstone.
There you go. Yeah.
Like,
burned alive for misspeaking while counting backwards from 300.
yeah.
That's good.
That would be, I don't know, Ryan. That's I'm concerned. I love the confidence. I wish I had that. Like, it's there's so many things I feel like life would be easier with your confidence. but I don't have. And here's the thing, Ryan, I believe you could do it. Like, that's the thing. Like, your confidence is so high, you exude it on other people. I'd go, if out of the three of us, I'm actually going to put money on Ryan that you're the one who's going to be able to do it.
I'll give you one. Are you confident or desperate?
Little bit of both, I guess. A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Can I answer, but
can I record this and put it on YouTube? It's like
the highest viewed video ever. Monetize it. So all right, guys. Well, thank you for humoring me. Thanks for
Mr. Beast Dark.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So well, today, Greg, you have the discussion, and to kick us off, we're going to start with our 7 questions game. So Eric, would you kick us off and try to figure out what the topic is today?
Yeah, I mean, it's my go-to first one. Is this New Testament?
No.
Okay.
Ooh, does this have to do with any of the major prophets?
No.
Okay. Is this in the Pentateuch?
No.
Okay.
Oh man. Is it wisdom literature?
No.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Is it let's see. Is it before the Kings?
Yes.
Okay. What do we have? 4 or 5? 5?
That was 5.
That was 5. Okay. So
before the Kings. Maybe it's wisdom literature.
I was gonna say question
It's
wisdom.
not.
It's not wisdom literature.
It's not.
Okay. Ruth, Judges, Joshua.
Yeah. Is it in the book of Ruth?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's
last
it.
question.
It's the story of Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Okay.
Let's go, Ryan.
Awesome.
We got to do a tally of who gets up. I feel like I'm the worst at this. I'm just always like, too much.
Sorry on the pause on the wisdom literature. I was like, I don't think it is, but suddenly started questioning myself. So
no,
it's kind of a unique little thing.
I have to say, Eric, like, this is not a one-up moment, but like, you're not the worst. Remember, like, when you did Samson and you gave that hint, and I was like, what on earth could it be? And Greg got it on the first question. It's like,
He's like, I really think you gave it away there, Eric.
So, all right, the book of Ruth.
Let's go.
That's it. So, it'll be a broad thing. I think there's some stuff in here that might be interesting.
Is that a female joke?
Come back to. Pardon me. Yes. Yeah. It's about
this will
broad.
be a broad.
Yeah, that's a broad one.
Do we cut that out?
We're
we're
jumping back to 1940.
Check out this broad.
This whole story's about broads. No.
Not at all. Not at all.
So, yeah, we're kind of doing a sort of an overview. I'm pretty open. I really like this book. It's 4 chapters. The structure is pretty easy. And if you're ever going to do a series, you could literally do 4 messages, 1 on each chapter.
Yeah.
And you can outline it that way. You can outline it in a way. I have another version of an outline for it that I like. If you're if you're I don't mean it demeaning. If you're just reading the Bible and stuff, outlining is not something that is in any way required. If you're trying to write sermons and stuff, outlining what you're looking at is often helpful. It's tedious. It can be hard. You can feel wrong while you're doing it. Not morally, just you could feel like you're not an expert, and so why should you be doing this? And that's why you can get other sources to kind of help you. But what an outline does is helps you a number of things. Helps you kind of get an idea of the themes, what is actually in there, forces you into the story in a deeper way, or the text rather. And so it's a good thing. So it's not just for some elite Bible scholar or whatever. Especially if you're teaching and preaching, then doing some form of outline. And the outline can look however you want it to. If you're not sure what it looks like, just remember school. I'm assuming you guys had to outline things or create outlines when you were in school. And so anyway, what just off the top of your heads, let's what kind of things interest you about the book of Ruth? We're really going off the top of my head with questions. I have notes, but no questions prepared. So
I mean,
or the story.
There's a ton of takeaways in this, but they're like kind of right off the bat, which I'm sure we're going to be getting into. But I think a central theme that runs for me in the book of Ruth is it's definitely, it's faithfulness, and it's being a person that is faithful, but there's also like this word that doesn't, I think, come into like church circles a lot unless it's being manipulated, which is loyalty. And so like loyalty, I think a lot of times is only used when the feeling is when someone's calling you out and you feel like they're being disloyal to you. But then loyalty's never talked about unless someone's being disloyal. And what's really cool about the book of Ruth is we're introduced to this person who is only known for their loyalty, and it didn't start with disloyalty. And there's an option for her to be absolved from what she has to do, and yet she stays. And so for me, what has always really stuck out is getting to read in the book of Ruth a characteristic about God that is in scripture and is there. We see her, like, his followers are called to be loyal as God is loyal and faithful as God is faithful, but we don't really get like stories where that's such a central theme within this, and that this person would be characterized as this way. David's a man after God's heart, but Ruth is loyal as God is loyal. That's always stuck out for me.
Nice.
Yeah, the thing that like just the broad kind of big idea that I kind of comes to mind right away is just community, but not in the sense of like a large group of people, but like connection between two people. That like a fellowship between two, and immediately I go to Ruth and Naomi, and that whole thing. And so that's the very first thing that comes to mind is, I mean, loyalty goes along with that, but just that idea of like devotion to like relationships within your life type thing. So
Nice. I agree. And what I'm going to say isn't primary. I'm just thinking at the same level about the question. I'm impressed by the idea, faithfulness. Yes. Doing, I'm going to use the term doing Torah, doing what you've been instructed to do, which is a result of faithfulness in return to God, produces blessing. It produces right results, or the results you would hope for or believe in. The thing, you get to the end of Ruth and you're like, that was a genuinely feel good story of redemption. Redemption from the inside for Naomi, and redemption from the outside for Ruth. And so it's there's a lot, because in a really, really good way. It's nice to, at least the last two the last one I did off Sodom and Gomorrah, this is like, it's like eating ginger with sushi. It just cleanses the palate is what this is doing. So Ryan, sushi is rice, and then they'll put fish over it and stuff, and sometimes it's raw. Anyway, just helping.
Fully aware, man. Fully aware.
Okay, all right. Just I didn't know. So, anyway, I did. This is kind of. I did a class on how to read the Bible, and I used Ruth to do that. One, because I can tell people we're not going to read a bunch from this book today, because otherwise we'd have to read all 4 chapters, and which is fine to sit down and read because it's not that long. It's easily digestible. You will have some questions, but they're not insane questions. You're not like, why did they burn everybody? Why did they offer him $25,000 and then light him on fire? That just sounds like a Judge's act. Just the end of Judges. They cut her into 12 pieces and then offered her $25,000. Sorry, I'm making stuff up. I'm really sharp today. But anyway, I use the ideas from How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth by Gordon Fee and Doug Stewart. And sometimes I say authors' names like I know them, and I'm like, I don't know these guys. It's a really strong book if you're looking for one. How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth. Anyway, it says that these are God stories, and it's a story that's utterly true, crucially important, and often complex, which is important. And the purpose of narratives is to show God at work in his creation among people. The narratives, the stories, glorify him and help us to understand and appreciate him. Anyway, then he breaks it down they break it down into 3 levels. So 3 levels of narratives. And the first one is the entire universal plan of God, and that's unfolding through his creation and redemptive history. The second level is God's redemption of Israel, and then the third is individual narratives, is how he kind of and so the goal is how to interpret things and how you're the lenses through which you're going. And so a type of version of this that I went to, and the way I put it together for Ruth was I called it just 3 layers. The first one is the story, which is getting to know it. The second one I did was I called it Into the Weeds, which is different than Into the Woods. That's a musical. Into the Weeds is what we're talking about. And if you've ever heard the term exegesis, it's close to this. Is we're going to look into the setting, the main characters, the context, and things like that, what was going on. And so now we're trying to figure out what is happening there as we're trying to interpret. And then the last one is, what does it mean? Often we sort of read it and then jump to what we think it means without doing any of the other work. Have we dive deeply? I almost said divin. That's not even a word. Have we dived deeply into the story so that we can really almost step inside it and look around? And then have we examined the context? And this is not just for narratives. This is done in literally anything. But before we get to what it means, the third layer, we need to ideally we do some work before we get there. That doesn't mean we don't have questions or like, I wonder if this means this. Have those, absolutely, but hold them loosely rather than this is it. I heard it from a preacher. Hold it loosely. You can do this work. And that, because it's at that level we get to what another big word, hermeneutics or interpretation. So our last step after doing work is trying to get closer to interpretation. And even then we never hold it like this. We hold it you might hold it a little firmer. No, I've done some work in this and I feel pretty confident, but we're going to do this. So anyway, as we do this, we won't be able to cover all of it in like 15 minutes here, but so when we're looking at Ruth, we're going to just what's the story? What happens as you guys remember it. This isn't. I can tell you, it didn't involve any Marvel characters.
So it's been a while since I've read it. I have read it all the way through, but it's been a while. I know Ruth is a Moabite. She's a foreigner. Is she traveling through Judea? No, okay.
Other way.
Yeah. See,
sorry. No,
okay. She's a Moabite, and she wants Boaz. She wants Boaz to marry her, but that's really. And then I know Naomi is like a mother-in-law, right, or former mother-in-law or something. So but that's all I really remember at the moment.
Awesome, great. Eric, are you able to fill any more in, or you want me to go? I'm not trying to put you on the spot and make you.
No, you're good. Okay. Yeah, I mean Ruth is married to Naomi's son. Naomi's son dies. In this, Ruth has the ability to leave Naomi, but that would be leaving Naomi with absolutely no one to take care of her. But also, no one is also there to take care of Ruth. And so there's this really powerful story in the beginning of them taking care of each other in the ways that that their sons, the males in the family would normally take care of this area. They end up covering that stuff, but that still does not mean that they are whole. And so then Boaz comes, and there's this very respectable man who goes about this the right way on how to honor Ruth and Naomi and the life, but then the big thing is the provision that he gives with saying now we're together, and still doesn't leave people behind. And so there's this kind of nice bow at the end of the story of, and everyone lives happily ever after kind of thing, in the middle of a famine. So as happy ever after you can get. So, but that's the over kind of beats that are going through there that I remember.
Nice, good deal. So for you guys, if you were going to do this, then we would say, let's take some time then for the story. You have you have the main characters, you have the direction. You've already talked about some of the thematic elements that are coming out of that. So we're doing great. All I've done is in a sense, a teacher is just try to identify where are we at. If we were doing it, and if it was just us, I'd be like, okay, here's it's not corrective as much as guiding me, getting a sense of where we're at. So I'll go with my summary of this, and then I'll get a little more into detail. Is Naomi moves to Moab. So it's hard to say there's multiple protagonists, but it begins with Naomi. It somewhat changes to Ruth, even though the whole book is has her name. But it seems to be Naomi is kind of the heart of this story, or what it kind of rotates around. So, and then Boaz definitely comes involved. But Naomi moves to Moab, and when there, her husband and her two sons all die. One of the daughters-in-law, Ruth, goes back with her to Israel, and Ruth eventually marries Boaz, and they have Obed. He has Jesse. Jesse is the father of David, who's King David. So the reason that's a thing is one of the questions at some level you get to is, why does this book exist? And this one does the work of connecting of a redemption kind of tale. How do we get out of Judges and into this king, how kings show up, and to really our most important king, who's David. So I did a larger kind of class, I guess, on David, and I began with the book of Ruth, because this is where to me in the Bible, this is where the David narrative starts. This is justification of David's rule and where he came from. And then and there's a bunch. Also, just a side note, Ruth is in the line of Jesus, which is interesting, and so is so is the prostitute Rahab.
Yeah.
So we've got two foreigners, two non-Hebrews, who are in the line of David, and so it's pretty significant.
Which is interesting. Sorry, side note. Interesting because Torah prohibits Israelites from intermarrying, but they do it anyways, and God still honors it. And in fact, the Messiah comes from a line of somebody who broke Torah in a sense. You know what I mean? So I think that's fascinating that that in the midst of them willingly breaking his law, God still uses it for his glory. So
and whether our interpretation of the application of law is correct, we go, God said this, so there's no wiggle room. And this shows that what he's saying by this, no Moabites at all, which we'll hit on in a few minutes, is that, but when you, if someone in there breaks the, let's go the opposite way and then I'll reverse it. So if I'm a Hebrew and I break law, I commit, I don't know, what am I looking for?
Like adultery or
go with that.
Sure.
There are penalties for that. And there's no, I can't come up with one that says, oh, that makes it okay.
Sure.
We have this one where being a Moabite, though, is no good. But what if that Moabite acts more faithfully than any Hebrew, or acts as faithfully as the ideal is? They are doing, kind of verbing the whole thing, but they are doing the law of God. And by who they essentially are, they, through whatever process you want, I am not a theologian, become children of God by virtue of their fundamental agreement with good, with God.
Well, it makes seems me think of that. It makes me think of John chapter 1, verse 12, where it says God gave the right to become children of God to anybody who believed. And so, like, I mean, it looks like that extends beyond the New Testament into the Old Testament, right? Like, I mean, Rahab, she said, Yahweh's the only one, and God was like, yep, she's in. Right, like that was the only criteria. And so and I think, Greg, what you're talking about is like a common law understanding versus a statutory law understanding, and like letter of the law versus spirit of the law type thing. And I think and this is a whole other podcast, but I think largely Western churches, Western culture gets the understanding of law wrong. So
Bible law. Not that we're doing our law right. That's a different conversation. But when we think there's only statutory, and we're not engaged in a different type of law that happened back then, in addition to social stuff. So
there's I was going to ask, like, in this, God's allowance of Ruth, not just in the story, but to be an example of Torah, is this God showing mercy or grace, or mercy and grace? Like, he should punish, but he doesn't, so there's mercy. Or is this I understand, speaking for God, I understand the larger thing that I'm trying to do. This fits in my capsule of grace, that I would give a law, yet allow this to not only be allowed, but it actually to extend to the greater plan in which I have. Like, is it both, or is it like, how do we read this and then go like, well, why doesn't he provide the same mercy to Philistines? Why doesn't he provide the same? You know what I mean? Like, is it an individual? I know that's kind of a bigger question right now, but even just kind of on the surface of just entering into this, are we seeing God's grace? Are we seeing his mercy? How do we see this?
I think, and there's a different question about what is the story what is a main purpose, or why does the story exist? What is the theme, or what are the themes and stuff? In my opinion, I don't think of it in the way I think of those words you use, grace and mercy. I think he is graceful and merciful.
Yeah.
I think we create, and this is just opinion, I think we create complications when we sort of dissect those down to here's instances of grace and mercy. If he is this, if this is who he, I mean, then we exist under that.
Right.
Are there micro, and that's where I get, I kind of lean away and I go, we're creating questions of why doesn't he use grace here when he does use grace here? And I'm like, no, he's always exhibiting grace and always exhibiting mercy. That means you and I have to change our theology, then okay. And then we do the work, or we have to reread stories to understand them, or we have to re-comprehend Paul to fit this in. Then to some degree, that's what we're doing to the story, is we're bringing an idea that we think Paul might have been talking about, or that current people are talking about, and saying, oh, here's God acting like that. And I go, can God just be God? And I don't mean to, I mean that in just unbelievably macro. But, and maybe somebody would, I'm trying to disagree with myself here, is maybe then you go, oh, then you're not really saying anything. And I'm like, I think I am. But anyway.
So really quickly, really quickly. So I think it's important, kind of, Eric, you kind of said something that I think we need to dive into a little bit. And Greg, you mentioned it, the way we understand law versus biblical law and all that. Like, so like the way we understand law is statutory, right? The law says this, therefore we need to do that. But that's not the way Torah is supposed to be understood. So what we see when it says, don't muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. Well, that's an application of the actual principle that Torah is trying to get at. It's not, it's not, supposed to necessarily be taken statutorily. Can it? Yes. But what's the principle behind it? So an example, Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 19, when you're harvesting your crops and forget to bring in a bundle of grain from your field, don't go back to get it. Leave it for the foreigners, orphans, and widows. Then the Lord your God will bless you in all you do. We see Boaz do that for Ruth. He's not just following the words, but the heart of Torah there is care for those who are vulnerable. Who are in a vulnerable position, care for them. That's the heart of Torah. So I think that would be a good way to start looking at scripture for anybody who's listening. Like, law in scripture is that, like, what's the principle behind the command? Because the command that we see is just an application of the principle. So sorry, Greg, I feel like I'm hijacking your
also there's another reference in Leviticus 23 to that same thing, and an additional to that, it's not just it's a welfare system, but not just a welfare system. It's actually I read a story where a Bible teacher was teaching this, and they had a farmer kid in there, and one of the takeaways he was able to bring out is the dignity of work. Also. And for those listening, I'm not saying let's create a work program for everybody, but I'm also not saying that. But the ability to earn what you've been given is a both and so it's kind of cool. So just for time, I'm going to push. So I like the structure. We won't go deep, but we'll kind of explain the story through this. The structure I like is a 3-part for this. I begin with the tragedy of what I call the tragedy of Naomi, which is really, the first chapter is rough. It begins rough because Naomi goes through some stuff. The second one is how will they eat, and the third is how will they get long-term security. And so, because if we're talking about vulnerable people, there's the immediate need, and then there's a long-term need. There's we go give them a fish, and you'll feed them once, teach them to fish, you'll feed them forever. Well, you can't teach them to fish if they're starving. So let's give them a fish and teach them to fish is the concept. So anyway, the chapter 1, tragedy of Naomi. Elimelech is Naomi's husband, and there's a famine in Israel, and so he moves them to Moab. This points to problems. This is there's so much, guys. There is a land that he would have in his family, in his kin, and so he's probably leased that off or given that to somebody else in some form. Those aren't the correct words. It's much more interesting and complicated than that, but not beyond comprehension. It's just more than we have time for right now. So they've left what they've been given so that they can go try and find food. He's married. Elimelech is married to Naomi, and they had 2 sons. And when they get to Moab, they marry 2 women. So his sons marry Ruth and Orpah. And by the way, as I understand it, Oprah's name is a version of this. Her mom just misspelled Orpah and ended up with Oprah. So side note, which is as we were jumping into exegesis, we go the names, which people get excited about, but this one doesn't do a whole lot of work. Elimelech is my God is king. El and Melech, or God king. And then Naomi means pleasantness and gentle. And when her husband and her 2 boys die from, let's assume it was a sickness, we really don't know. Well, we kind of know in just a minute. She changes her own name, and she just calls herself this, and not so much. She calls herself Mara, which means bitter. Now, the reason this is, we could have other discussions, I think, that are interesting because of Naomi's sons' names are Mahlon and Chilion, and Mahlon means sickness, and Chilion means extermination. And so it's possible that there's elements here of storytelling that or this was just a weird way to name your kids. So anyway, but now for this book, they don't really do a whole lot of work. Those names don't do a ton, but just information. And so that's also something you do as you read it, and it's okay to read something and then look up, do all the work to find the meaning, and find out that it means box, and it does nothing. Good. You just learned how to do that. That's fine. But don't force it. Oh, God means this is a box. We shouldn't be boxed in, Calm down, Mr. Metaphor. Not everything has deep meaning, and it's okay. All right. The earth is round.
Not a square.
No. Anyway, so all the men die, leaving the women on their own. And Naomi then decides that she's going to move back to her home, which is in Judah, southern Israel. And in this case, Ruth insists going with her. And we will get to now. Let's go ahead, and it's at this point that so we're at Ruth 1:16 through 17, and Naomi's saying, "Go back. We don't need you." And Ruth 8, actually, Naomi says it this way. But on the way, Naomi said to her daughters, "Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for the kindness to your husbands and to me." So this is what the Naomi says to those to Ruth and Orpah. So at this point, Orpah's like, "Okay, bet, I'm out, going home." And because this is the challenges, what if we had more time, it would be a question of let's just do it. What are the challenges for 3 now widows at this point in time? What do you know? What do you remember?
How are they going to be cared for the rest of their life?
Right.
They're women. Why should they need to be cared for? Why do they need a man to care for them? I mean that in very much in the way I'm saying,
because that's how it was back then. Okay. Like the whole feminist, boss lady, all that, like that's a new thing within the last 100 years. and it's very Western. I think in the Eastern culture, this is still like a way of life largely, and so like that's just how things were done back then. So women, to like when they're widows, that's a really scary thing, because how are they going to be cared for? How are they going to be taken care of? So
yeah, I mean,
and it's why the Bible mentions them in what I call the big three, right? Widows, orphans, and sojourners.
Yeah. Well, there's very specific roles that exist within this. You know, we've talked about this in relation to these times, although there is an established space in which the people would live. These are still traveling people. There's still a lot of movement that's happening here. You know, we are talking about like land that is owned, you know, later on, you know, in chapter 2 we start kind of getting to this, but like you mentioned already, they got nothing. Like this is and in other situations, if your brother's wife is left widowed, then you take them as your wife, so that there then can be an heir that comes from this, so that there's a rightful legacy, a passing on of this stuff. And so we lose all of that. And Naomi's response to the initial response is, I can't give you more husbands. Like that is what I should do, is I should be able to give you another. I don't have that ability. My husband is dead, who I would go to. We're left out here. And so even her, let's go back to where I came from, is a response of, I have to go to a place in which I'm supposed to be cared for. So if you're clinging to me, this is where we're going, you know, like, so it's not meant, it's not a statement on any current cultural things. They're just very clear roles of survival, and what needs to be done here.
Yep. Very much. So, and to any listener, this is not us making any statements about roles of women and gender roles or any of that. We're simply talking about ancient Hebrew life. And at this point in the planet, probably life anywhere. Land ownership was a little different. But anyway, so the thing that we're going to really make clear in the next few minutes and before we go is what Eric had talked about, and there's so much more we can do with the book of Ruth, but it's in Ruth 1:8, the one I just read, and may the Lord, it says, go back to your mothers and may the Lord reward you for your kindness. That word kindness is the Hebrew chesed, and it means loving kindness, it means faithfulness, it means loyal love. It's used, I think, a little over 250 times in the Bible. It's often referring to God's faithfulness. But it's also a term, it's a deep sort of kindness. It doesn't mean that she's saying, oh, Yahweh's faithfulness is what you're showing. But it's not doing that either. It can do the work of saying an ideal version of this. And it's a hugely significant thing. So when Psalm 136, it repeats the phrase, his faithful love endures forever, or the version you might have heard, his love endures forever. It's actually Hesed, where it's faithful love, his enduring, never failing kind of love. It's some of the thing that this whole book of Ruth is pointing to, or we can go, oh, this is an example of the type of faithfulness that God has. But that would be, as we went through in the beginning, that's an interpretation tool that we get. If we do that too early, we reduce Ruth to only that. That is a huge takeaway, but it's one that comes from doing the study so that the whole lesson comes in. When we jump too early to some deep meaning and you haven't established the depth, you haven't built the foundation of the deep statement. So if we go grace, for example, like we talked about, if we just go grace, well, it becomes this great, it's mercy, it's grace, it's forgiveness, it's this. I'm saying, man, these are thick, deep, wonderful things. God is. Let's build this foundation before we start, kind of, I don't have control of God's faithfulness, meaning intellectually, I can't comprehend this. I want it to be that. I want it to be bigger than I can hold. And let me continue to do work. I don't have control of these theological concepts. They speak into me and change me and do these incredible works. So when I hear and I am confronted with Hesed, this type of thing that God, he's steadfast, unmoving, this mercy, this faithfulness, this is God. This is, and it's just an aspect of him, but it's fundamentally him. So to jump way ahead into that interpretation, because I feel pretty good with the whole book, his faithfulness. Ruth, in saying this, let me read from Ruth 1:16. But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me." I'm going to tear up because this is so good. I'm hopefully by saying it I won't, but anyway. She says, "Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. And may the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me."
Wow.
This is, without using the word hesed, this is defining it in a human relationship. Why is Ruth the Moabitess, who, according to Deuteronomy 23, which says no Ammonite or Moabite or any of their descendants may ever enter the assembly of the Lord, not even to the 10th generation. And then it continues to go on and explain why. And there's a good reason why for all that. Why is she allowed? Because every time Ruth is mentioned, Ruth the Moabitess, Ruth the Moabitess, Ruth, what are they doing there? What's the author keep hitting on this? It's that among the things, and again, I'm jumping into interpretation, she agreed with Hesed of God. She lived out the type of fundamental faithfulness. And not just in word, because the rest of the story is that they go back to Israel. Chapter 2, and I go, how do they eat? And it's this, that Naomi instructs Ruth to go to a field and do the thing that Ryan just so Boaz leaves, instructs his workers to leave stuff for the poor, and this is what Ruth is going. But Naomi instructs her to go to Boaz's field because she knows they're related in some way. And they seem to be a little bit more distant related, but they are related. And so Boaz is a relative of Naomi, and it's something called a kinsman redeemer, but that's we need to do another episode. But Naomi sends Ruth to glean his fields, and Boaz notices her. We have a sex crazed culture, and we go, "Oh, notice her, huh?" Maybe, but later on we hear Boaz is kind of old, so this isn't what it's about. He just simply sees someone, and the reason also is that what he does is he instructs his employees, let's call them, to actually make sure she's safe. He doesn't exploit her. He actually creates a safe environment for her. Why? Because it's not safe to be out on her own doing this. And so this is also what Ruth is saying, or Naomi said, "Hey, go back." She's saying, "I'm going to be exposed. You guys shouldn't be exposed either." What Ruth is saying, Orpah made the right decision, the sensible decision. She went back to safety where she was secure. Ruth said, "There's no way I'm leaving you that vulnerable." Which is just so amazing.
Well, and it's also it's a similar response that Ruth gives Naomi. There's no way I'm going to leave you here unprotected. There's no way. This is so. It's the continual narrative structure here. Just
Which
to put
is
a potential.
The heart of Torah.
Yes, exactly 100%. Right. Exactly right. So when I say this book points to the use in doing Torah, right things happen. It doesn't mean there's no famines. It means that interpersonally things are gonna happen right. So let's close this out. When, by the way, just as a side note, just because it's interesting to me, when Boaz says it kind of gives her that safety, there's a certain amount of barley that he gives them. And so in one day, for example, Ruth was able to glean 14 liters of barley, which means nothing to me, until I looked up and found that one person needs 1 liter of barley a day to survive in that culture. For Naomi and Ruth to survive, then they need 2 liters of barley a day. In one day, Boaz set her up and she gleaned 14 liters. And in 7 weeks, she gets 2/3 to 1 year of food. This is Boaz taking care of her without any reward. He's not trying to manipulate her. He's not grooming her. He's simply going, and his response, and the reason he does this is actually, he says it in Ruth 2. He goes, yes, I know, he replies about something else, but I also know everything you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I have heard how you left your father and your mother, your own land, to live here among complete strangers. And may the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge.
Yeah.
God never throws away those who come to take refuge. Will reward you fully for what you have done.
Yeah.
She exhibited what I think of as Hesed, and and the people around her are recognizing this is the type of faithfulness that God honors and we honor. She is taking care of somebody who is family, and she has become family. And this is among so much incredible stuff inside Ruth. So worth doing even more work, because there's just great stuff. So, and we barely covered 1 and 2 chapters, but it's that fundamental chesed that is that God is, and Ruth is exhibiting. Naomi in return does that, and then we see Boaz come alongside, and his faithfulness to the faithful God results in him taking actions that are in line with the laws of God. Here's how to stay in relationship.
Yes.
Here's the instruction on how to stay close to each other and to God and each other. And you do this, things function. And that's what it's about. So it
immediately reminds me of Jesus bringing the story of the Good Samaritan to give an example of neighbor. You know, but neighbor meaning more this that whether it's this if I can't use you as an example of what Torah, what neighbor, what love, what this big grace idea is, I'll use anybody. In fact, I'll use who you would deem as an enemy.
And a flip of who do I owe faithfulness to versus who needs faithfulness.
100%. Yeah, that's it's such the challenge of us as people who are blessed by God is not necessarily just to keep looking on the inside, but look towards the outside. Available, what has God given me? What can I use? You know, and then the blessing comes from that is he'll keep that cycle. You know, doesn't mean you always feel it, but the cycle is always continuing. So this is fire. I love it. So we got another episode on Ruth coming up then.
We can if you want.
Sounds like it. I think we should do a part 2. So
cool. We'll do it next time.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, let's wrap this thing up. If you guys are enjoying the Odd Testament podcast, we would love your support. The best way to help us to keep bringing all this awesome content your way is by showing us some love. And here's how you can do that. First, take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. 5 stars, leave a review. That helps push our content out more to the world, and so we would love that. 5 stars only, please. No 1 stars. You know the deal. Next, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you always stay up to date on the latest content that we put out there. We drop new episodes every Monday, so be on the lookout for that. And finally, show us show us some love. Follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We post daily, so we would love to hear from you. We would love to answer any questions. If you guys have suggestions on what content we need to do next, we would love to hear it. So do all that. Your support means the world to us, and together we can keep bringing this awesome, odd content to the world. Boys,
100%.
thanks for your time today. Great conversation.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg. This was a great intro, man. Yeah.
Good job, Greg.
I thought you were like, clap yourself on the back. Like, yeah, I did do good. Which by the way, my initial thought to you here, my initial thought, this is how I'm growing. When you said that and I went, oh, he said something really nice about himself, I was like, man, I should do that more often. I'm like, Eric, you did a good job. I'm like, anyways, sorry, trying to wrap it up.
That would create internal shame monologue. I can't.
Have more grace for yourself, Greg. Have more grace.
I know.
All right.
I know. Good.
We will talk to you guys later.
Have a good one. Bye.